Alright, I just dropped off the kids at daycare and at the school bus. And so I actually was going to sit and talk in this park for a bit about what I've got planned and what I'm working on. But I actually have to get home and take out the recycling because if I don't, it's just going to sit at home for another week and it's going to suck. So let's go do that. I'm going to get some breakfast and yeah, we'll talk some more. Okay, so I didn't get back in time. The recycling was already taken. Oh well. I should have just filmed in that park. It was sunny, now it's been rainy. I don't even know what it is right now. It's like threatening rain. So many threats. Let's go back in time. I've been a filmmaker for about 15 years. I've spent a lot of my energy helping other people tell their stories as a cinematographer and as an editor. And recently, over the last 6 years running my own business, I've been telling the stories of other businesses to help them connect with, their clients and their audiences. But as a filmmaker, as someone who went to university and dedicated a lot of my life to becoming a filmmaker, there's a few projects that I've always wanted to do and have never done. They're kind of bucket list projects. One is a feature film, and I'm making strides to make something happen in that realm, but the other, and this is kind of more pertinent to today's topic, is a documentary. Now, a feature documentary is something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to tackle a big story and look at it like a big idea. Now, I've had some really great opportunities to work on other projects and to, be a part of really interesting stories, but I haven't really had the chance to tell a story from my own perspective and follow it through in the way that I really want to do it. And the nice thing about the idea that I'm going to be working on is that it works with my lifestyle. It's going to be a story about something that's really close to me. It's about cargo bikes. It's about people choosing to use biking as their primary mode of transportation as opposed to driving. This is a big part of my life. And so this is an easy thing for me to translate into a documentary and go talk to people that I've been really interested in talking to but haven't really had an excuse. So I think there's some really interesting stories to tell, especially from a Vancouver perspective. And so that's going to be something that I'm going to be looking at. And I have a goal of finishing that within a year. Okay, I'm going to just go back a minute. And a big part of the reason why I'm announcing this is that frankly, I think if I don't say it out loud, I just won't do it. And I'm kind of doing this so that I have to do it. I really don't have any excuses, but I'm finding that I'm in this position now where I've got everything I need to do this documentary and pull it off. And over the last couple weeks, I've been kind of neglecting it. I've been putting it off. And now, I actually have to do the goddamn thing. So, I'm doing a documentary. It's happening. So today we're going to be talking about planning a documentary. And how do you go about doing that? Because it can be a bit overwhelming. I know I'm currently overwhelmed. I know the story that I want to tell. I don't think it's that complicated. But there are a lot of moving pieces to telling the size of story that I want to tell. So before I even get started in planning this out, I think it's important to know the size of your goal, right? So for documentaries, typically they come in a variety of typical sizes, right? There's at the smallest end, there's what we're used to seeing on the internet now of these small, 5 to 10 minute documentaries. This is something that I want to do that's a lot bigger than that. So the next step up would be a TV half hour, which is about 22 minutes. Now, I've done several episodes working on other series of making this size of show. So it's something I'm actually quite familiar with, but I actually want to go and do the next step up, which is the TV hour, right? It's about 45 minutes. It's typically what you're used to seeing for, a full length documentary. The next step up would be a feature length documentary, which would be about 90 minutes. I don't know that I want to do quite that size. I think that size is great, if you have a giant topic. And my topic that I want to work with, I know that I could take it that far, but in order to do that, I will need more resources than I do now. So at this point, I'm not looking at that size. I'm looking at the TV hour. I think 45 minutes is kind of the perfect size for what I'm looking at right now. So now I know that it would seem like, knowing the size of the documentary isn't as important as knowing the story you want to tell, and that the size should match the story. But I actually think that the story can fit into a variety of different sizes. It's just a matter of how much of it you're telling and what's relevant to the size of the story. So at this point, I know the story I want to tell. Or more importantly, and this is kind of my big point to this, is I know the root of the story I want to tell. And knowing the root of your story is the most important part of telling a good story. Because the best stories you've ever heard are about something, right? They're not about 8 things. They're about something. Even if they talk about 8 things, they're ultimately about one thing. So knowing the root of your story and sticking to that is, the most important thing about making a clear message. So the root of my story is about the growth of cycling culture in Vancouver. And so that topic is both, fairly broad. You can talk about a lot of different things in that. But for this, I'm going to be looking at specifics. I'm going to be looking at things like families who are doing all their transportation by bike, right? Or at least most of it, right? And people who've given up on cars. I'm going to be looking at businesses that do all their work by bike. I'm going to be looking at essentially what happened to make bike culture kind of grow in this city. So there's a lot of different things that we can talk about around this one route, right? And so from this route, you can find all your supporting topics for your story. So if my route is cycling culture in Vancouver, then around that comes things like all the different little stories that I want to tell to support that. So knowing that we're going to be talking about all these supporting ideas around this central route is the idea of theme and variation, right? So our theme is our route, and our variation is all the supporting topics, right? And you'll notice this with most stories, if not all stories. All great stories do this, is they'll have a central theme, and then they'll have variation going around it. Here's an example of theme and variation in a documentary, right? So take a documentary like Chef's Table. I think that's one of the best shot documentary series around right now. And with that show, essentially what you have is the theme is something along the lines of chefs telling personal stories using food, right? So how do chefs use their personality and the ingredients around them to tell the story of who they are and, where they fit into the world? Each chef has their own theme. Maybe they're from a specific place, and the theme is how that place affected them. And so the variation is we see their childhood, we see them, going through their career, and we see all the different pieces that have influenced them as it relates to that, and how, they've brought it all together within their cooking, within their restaurant, and how they use their food to tell a story about that, right? So that's an example of theme and variation in a documentary. So once you know your route, and you know the theme and variation you're trying to do within your story, you can start to plan. You can start to look at who are the actual people or places or things you want to talk about that relate to that. And so for my case, I want to follow a bit of my own story, but I also want to follow the story of people around me I know who are kind of living this lifestyle and how cycling has affected them, what changes they've made to take this on. And so for me, what I'm starting with is a list of subjects, so a list of ideas that I want to talk about that relates to cycling and how cycling is affecting culture. And so that's going to be different families who cycle. It's going to be different businesses who use cycling as their primary mode of transportation. It's going to be businesses that, serve cyclists. It's going to be city planners and urban development. It's going to be comparing it from Vancouver to other parts of the world and seeing how people do things differently. But the point is now's the time to make a list of everything you want to talk about. And then from there, you need to take each topic and make a list of all the people involved in that topic that you should talk to. And so now that you have a list of the ideas that you want to talk about, this is really just like a starting point. I'm sure in those conversations, things will change. New ideas will come up. They'll point me to new people that I need to talk to. And then I've got to use my discretion to see if those are relevant people to talk to. And so knowing all the ideas that you want to talk about and having a good sense of the people that you want to talk to is a great starting point to building questions. And I'm going to do another video about questions and how I build questions. But really, it always comes down to the same things of, who, what, where, when, and why, right? And coming up with different variations on those. And so I'll do another video on that another time. But seeing all these things together is why things can feel really complicated and why these projects can feel really complex. But really, that's why it's so important to know the route, right? Remember, the one thing that you want to talk about is the one clear message you're trying to make in this giant sprawling project. And so that's all information for me to consider, because I'm the one who has to do the work now. And so if this video has been helpful, hit the thumbs up. If you have any ideas or tips about, ways that things can be done efficiently and ideas about making documentaries, put them down in the comments. It could be really helpful to other people and myself. But otherwise, if you want to follow this journey and see where it goes, hit the subscribe button, because this is going to be going on for quite a while. Although I do have a deadline. Deadlines are important. Otherwise, it just never finishes. All right. See you later. Camera's too far. Just get out of here. Just go.